All right, we are live. Welcome to Ashmont Realty Live. This is Adam Ashba, going to be your teacher tonight, president of Ashmont Realty and Broker. And tonight, why we're all here live on a Thursday night is we're going to be talking about this. How to write winning contracts in 2024. So a lot of you out there ask me this question all the time. You know, it's tough sometimes to write good contracts. It's going to get you into contract. So we're going to talk about all the ins and outs, a lot of info. I mean, this could go on for a long time, but let's do it. Let's get it out of the way and write better contracts in 2024. So we got Ashmont Realty agents jumping on, and actually everyone's welcome. Every brokerage is welcome. I sent it out to everybody. So we're going to be talking about how to write contracts, better contracts, and what, if you're a listing agent, what some of those contingencies you're going to be finding when they're writing to you for your clients. So we're going to talk about that and much, much more right after this countdown.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All right, we got people filing on here slowly but surely, but just like real estate, never sleeps and it keeps moving. So we're going to go ahead and get started on tonight's topic. And that, again, is how to write winning contracts in 2024. And the reason why I put 2024 is if we had this, this podcast workshop a couple years ago, it might be a little different. But these are the things that we're seeing in market that, agents are seeing and writing, and they don't even understand sometimes what they're writing in contracts. Which is a little scary. You write it in your contract. It's a legal binding, agreement between a buyer and seller. And we really don't understand what we're even putting in or putting our clients in. So let's go ahead and get started. Now, before we get started, guys, I want this to be very interactive. If you have any questions, if you'd like to ask a question, just put it in the comments section as you're watching this live, and I will answer those live. Now, if you're really bold and you want to go on camera, you don't even have to go on camera, but if you want to be on mic and ask me questions live, there's a little link below. You see that StreamYard.com, If you copy and paste that in a browser, it will pull you into our studio and you can ask it. If you want to be off camera, that's totally fine. And I can ask, you can actually physically talk two-way with me live on air. So with that being said, this is being recorded. So if you can't stay the whole time, we will throw the recorded broadcast back out to everybody, because this is something you probably want to go over a few times. Because again, if your broker's not covering this with you, we'll do it here at Ashmont Realty. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started. So right here, how to write winning contracts in 2024. Again, my name is Adam Ashba. I'm the broker and president of Ashmont Realty. And we're going to be talking about a lot of different things, all pertaining to contracts. Some of the how to set up the deal when a client's ready to get started in a contract, and a lot of the contingencies that you're going to write into them. So with that being said, with real estate, everybody, very fast paced. Again, a lot of times we can't wait till the next day. We got to get these contracts in. We got to understand a contract is crucial. It's crucial to be able to, get a buyer and seller into contract. It's very important, but there's a process to it. And over the years, there's a finesse and a way to approach things professionally to kind of get your foot in the door. Because sometimes, guys, there are situations where you might have multiple contracts. And guys, it's not always about the price. And we're going to talk about that. Newbie agents always write a standard boilerplate contract, a certain price, close in 30 days and things like that. But it's not always the case. So, so one thing I do want to make sure that everyone understands is, in real estate and any good negotiation, there's not a winner or loser. It should be a give and take. And, sometimes we do have clients, which is very frustrating, that they always want to take. they just want to take. And right now, it's not as much as it used to be, but there was a time that sellers just literally raked buyers over the coals, made them jump through a lot of hoops, and that's just not fair. In a good negotiation, a good contract, you have two parties that are giving and taking a little bit, and that's the way it should be. No party should be walking away feeling good that they ripped off another party or really took advantage of it. That's just not right. It's not ethical, even though it might be legal, and it just doesn't make everyone feel good. So, I always want to point that out. So, the first thing I want to talk about is I call it the setup. Okay, this is what I call it the setup, and what that is that is when you're out with a buyer, you look at a house, and you guys walk outside, and you're gonna see the gleam in their eye. You know what's coming, and they're like, you know what, Adam, I think I want to put an offer on this house. And you're like, oh, sweet, right? And you're like jumping for joy inside. You're like, hell yeah, that's great. Let's do it. So they're all excited, about it. And you are too. You're just kind of keeping calm and collect. One tip is don't do that in front of the front door. A lot of times, guys, a lot of, homes now have Ring doorbells, so don't do that in front of clients' front doors. You might want to do it off to the side in the driveway, because a lot of times you are being recorded, and that can really screw up your negotiation. So that's tip number one. But, on the setup, there's things that we, want to cover. We want to talk to our buyers and just clarify what the objective is. Now, you already might know they want a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 2-car garage. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about this specific house. Understand what their needs and goals are. Okay. Be specific. Make sure you understand, meaning, is your buyers flexible on move-in? Will they, maybe there's some things on the property that concern them. A roof or HVAC or something that you're looking at. Another thing is, maybe there's something on the property that they want removed. So make sure before you leave that you have a really good bearing of, what's the goal, something that's top on the priority list of your buyer, of what they would like, to do, if they can actually, get the house. Okay. So, I always call that the setup. So just get the foundation ready, know what's important, because you're going to have to maybe start negotiating, guys, going forward. So just prioritize, know the objective, just like in the military, know the objective. All right, guys, this is so important. All you guys, I'm getting old. I feel like it sometimes, but if I have to do anything here, listen up, Realtor service announcement. Texters, I'm a big texter. I love texting, but guys, don't text the listing agent. That's what everyone else does. Okay. Start building rapport with the listing agent. I put it in red. Call the listing agent. All right. We all love to text, but listen, I had someone like a week or two ago that I called them. I was texting them a lot. I called them and they were like, that was so nice of you to call me. And this person's like my age, like late 40s. And I was kind of like caught off guard, like, oh yeah, that's cool. But I was like, oh my gosh, calling somebody creates a connection that we just don't get much anymore. And when you see a property, you're 99.9% confident you're going to put in a contract. Make sure you call the listing agent, just introduce yourself, say, hey, my client likes the house. And not only this, obviously start building rapport. Okay. Start building rapport, talk to them, connect with them personally. Oh, how long you been in the business? Oh, do you live in this area? Just start making friends with them. This goes a long way, guys, because I've had many situations, including myself, that, I'm dealing with another real estate agent and they're telling their seller, like, listen, this is the guy that, he called me and said that the clients really like the yard and the house and they're new home buyers, yada yada. And this is a guy that, like, he seems really nice, and their clients seem really nice. Again, we've never met, but what happens is it sets the stage of, these are people we want to negotiate with. Sellers, these are the people that we want to, like, work with. Okay, now maybe we got to work out the deal, like the price or the contingencies, whatever, but these are really nice people that we can deal with, because seller agents, if you have a buyer agent barking at you or vice versa, you don't want to deal with that. And it's just, you're not going to, like, vouch or, sell that other party to your client. You're going to maybe say the opposite. Like, I know this is a good, offer, but we have one very similar. This is the people that were kind of rude to me on the phone that day. Don't do it. There's just no room for it. I know we see it a lot on the Netflix shows. That is not real. That is TV reality. Okay. Now, when you start talking with those listing agent guys, okay, this is all part of the setup. Start, just ask this simple, open-ended question. Now, you can tailor this to whatever you want. So at the bottom, right there at the bottom, all in red, I say something along the lines of, hey, love the house. Clients love the house. They love, they're very interested, been looking around. But I got a question for you. What's important to the sellers that we can make a really great flexible offer for them? What's important to them? Now, you can spin it any way you want. Make sure it's very open-ended. And what you're going to get negotiating gold, guys. What they're going to do is they're going to tell you, the seller's agent, in this case, obviously, they're going to tell you what you need to do and how you need to write the contract. Now, hopefully, it kind of coincides with what your buyer's goals are. That's why you got to know what your buyer's goals are initially. Okay? Ask them that open-ended question, because the things you're going to get is, I'm looking back in my career, is like, well, they want the most amount of money, obviously. But, they are older. They would like, maybe to live in the house a couple weeks after close, because they got a lot of stuff, to move out. They're a little older, and they don't move as fast, something like that. They will tell you exactly what you need to do to write the contract accordingly. Now, hopefully it's, it kind of, goes in line with your buyer. And what you do is you take that information, okay, and you take it back to your buyer and say, hey, listen, talk to the listing agent. She's really nice. We're real friendly together. This is some things that are important to the seller that we're going to need to do. That going to make them entertain for our offer. It could be anything, guys. Sometimes too, and we're going to cover it tonight, is maybe no contingencies on appraisal. Well, it'd be nice if, you guys don't ask to fix anything. Okay. We'll talk about that later. But they're going to tell you exactly what they're looking for. So when you submit the offer, they're going to say, oh, that's perfect. That's exactly what we were thinking, and you're going to match, and, just give yourself the best situation to getting that offer accepted. So again, guys, we're live. It's 7:00 Eastern time, October 10th. If you have any questions, put it in the comments section as I go along tonight, and I will answer those live for you. Other than that, we're going to keep rocking and rolling and keep going. Now, some key things we're going to talk about tonight is going to be key strategies. We're going to talk about dollar amounts. How much do you put in? What kind of an offer do you put in? Do you put it in high or low or whatever? We're going to talk about possession. We're going to talk about waiving inspection. I put big question marks after that. And then escalation clauses. We see those, and a lot of people have no idea what those even mean, but they still write them in contracts. And last but not least, we're not seeing as much before, and that is the appraisal gap. Those are the things we're going to cover tonight. And you really, after tonight, you're going to have a 99% of the stuff curveballs thrown at you, If you're a listing agent, you're going to see it coming in, and then you can strategize as a buyer agent too if you need to. So let's go ahead and move along. So let's talk about dollar amount. This is probably one of the biggest anxieties that I get with new agents. Like, how much do we offer on the house? Well, you know, if a house is listed for $100,000, the seller is telling you, well, if you give me $100,000 and the terms and conditions are okay, then we'll accept the deal. Now, that was how it's always been. It's really kind of how it is now. Now, there was a time, and that's why we call it writing competitive offers in 2024. If you ask me that question in 2021, it might be, well, we might have to go over list price to even be competitive. But, you know, those days are slowing down, you know, and, you know, something I do want to mention, guys, if you have a client, a buyer, in this case, it's asking you to write an over list offer. Here's another tip, guys. If they say, Adam, how much should I write? You know, they want $100,000 for it, but, you know, I think there's a couple more offers coming in. Yes, there is. Well, let's go over list price. Let's offer more than they're asking for. That's fine. Happens all the time, guys. But I can tell you, you know, look at number 2 on this slide, guys. Comparable sales. You need to do comps, guys. All right. So we're in a market condition right now that some people are paying over list price. Okay. Not as bad as we used to, but we need to look at comparable sales. And we need to see what homes are selling for in the area. If that home is listed for $100,000 and they're asking $100,000, that's pretty fair, right? That's if an appraiser came out and appraised that house, that's how much it would be. So what you need to do is deliver that information to your buyer. And I say something like this: buyer, that house we just looked at, it's worth $100,000. You know, the comps, the things in the neighborhood are, you know, 100,000. That's what it's worth. If you want to pay more than that, that is up to you, but it's only worth $100,000. So if you want to pay more to try to guarantee, possibly, I use that word loosely, give you a better chance is probably a better word, to give you a better chance to get this house in contract, then, you know, you tell me what you're comfortable with. Okay. Again, you buyer, tell me what you're comfortable with. I do not tell clients how much to put over list offers on properties. Here's the reason why. Okay. If you tell them, oh, do 5,000 over, and they do 5,000 over and do exactly what you told them, and the winning bid was 6,000 over, and they lose out on the house for $1,000, who do you think they're going to be mad at? You. Okay. If they win the house and they pay $5,000 over, okay, that's not that much. I've seen deals where they're 60,000 over, but say they pay over list price, they drain their bank account to, you know, because remember, the bank is not lending them that money. They have to pay for anything over list price, right? So what will happen is, what happens if they get divorced a year later, or they have to move or transfer for work? Now they have a house that they literally spent all their savings on. They paid over list price. They might even, I'm not saying they're upside down, but they don't have much wiggle room to hire another realtor to sell their house. Guess who they're mad at? You. So it's kind of a lose-lose situation sometimes. When that, not kind of, it always is. It always comes back to the agent. So that's why I always recommend that you as agents, you know, if they want to do something above and beyond what something's worth, that's up to them. But they have to make it their decision. They have to give you the number. If they want to spend 50,000 over list, okay, I'll write it up. Just do what they tell you. It's their decision, and you won't be, you're not going to be holding the bag for it. Okay. All right. Let's keep talking about dollar amount. You know, something too, you know, you got to look at comps. You got to educate your buyer, because sometimes, this house is worth $100,000, but we all have those buyers that, always want to lowball people, and they want to put in $80,000. But again, you got to say, listen, no, this house is worth 100. Look at the comps. This is what's selling for. The seller is asking for a fair price for this house. Okay. Things that you need to consider on the top of this slide. Number one is condition of the home. I want to talk about that a little bit. This is a rookie mistake that drives listing agents crazy. When you show a home, buyer agents, you need to be walking through the entire house. You need to be looking at the roof. You need to be looking at the HVAC. You need to be looking at the condenser, air conditioning unit. Look at that stuff. It's not like it's hidden. It's not like it's hiding behind a vault door or something. You can visually see it. Make note of it. Point it out to your clients, because when you go to put that offer in, you need to take those things into consideration. If all these things need repair, all these things need replaced, you're going to find it on the inspection. So before you even put in the offer, you need to make the offer, in reality to what the condition of the home is. Okay, it just sets up everything up a little bit more smooth, nicely. Everyone's on the same page, because it's not fair to go full price on a house and then turn around a week later after you do an inspection to say, oh, the roof's really old, we want $10,000 off. And if I'm a listing agent, I'm going to say, no, you saw the roof. You knew it was you knew it was 20 years old. You asked me before you even went out to it. We're not dropping the price. You put in an offer according to that. Okay. Other things, seller's motivation. If the house has been on market for 30 days, 60 days, maybe they're going to be a little bit more motivated. If a house is sitting on market for 3-4 weeks and it's still for sale, guys, why would you put in a full price offer? You're bidding against yourself, right? Maybe come down a little bit. If the house is $100,000, ask 92. I don't know. Take a stab at it. All they're going to say is no, right? And they're going to counter you, but be ready for it. But again, if the house has been on market for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks, we're seeing homes on market a little longer than we had. 27, 8 days right now in Central Ohio. That's a lot more than it was 2 or 3 years ago. So, if you have a house that's been sitting on the market for a month or 2, 3, then, you might be able to come in a little low. All right. Last but not least, on the dollar amount, know your budget. Okay. If your client's only pre-approved for $100,000, okay, don't be putting in $310,000, $15,000 offers. Okay. Now, some pre-approvals, guys, they do give them a little leeway. So if if the pre-approval is $300,000 and, the client wants to put in like 305, I don't know what, 310, not much higher, get with your lender, because they might look at it and look at that specific house and say, we can actually go up to 312 and still make the numbers work. Now, something happened last week that can affect that. Okay. And for everyone watching live, they know what I'm talking about. If they work at our brokerage, things went up. Interest rates went up almost 1% in a few days. People who could afford a $300,000 house maybe now can only afford a $240,000 house. I'm making that up, but that's really going to differentiate. Or vice versa. If they got pre-approval when rates were 7%, rates went down to 6.25%, then now they might be able to afford a $325,000 house. Okay. So make sure you know your client's budget. Sometimes you can go over a little bit on those pre-approvals. All right. Possession, that's pretty straightforward. One thing, rookie mistake, possession, every time they always put at closing. It happens all the time. Okay. Meaning, like, everyone thinks that just because someone, wants to sell a house, they want to sell as fast as possible. That is not always true. Go back to the slide we talked about when we was communicating with the seller. When you say, "Hey, seller, can you tell me what's important to the sellers? We can make a great offer for them, so it's flexible for them." A lot of times I will say, "Remember my example before? Well, they would like to stay in the house for a couple weeks after close. That would be so wonderful because they're older and it takes them a long time to move their stuff out." So guess what? When you write that offer, put in that they can take, we, the buyer, won't take possession for 2 weeks after close. Now check with your buyer, make sure they're okay with it, because technically you have people living in your home for 2 weeks for free. Okay. So, but think about that. Because sometimes, guys, I've won deals not because I had the highest dollar amount, I had the most flexible terms, AKA possession. And the fact that those people can take, an extra 2 or 3 weeks, whatever they say, from after closing to get moved out, that could be worth thousands and thousands of dollars for 'em. If you come off like a nice family, flexible, and easy to work with, that goes a long ways. And the listing agent will convey that to them. Okay. So again, it's not always at closing. Don't do that. You got to, and you'll get that. They'll tell you. If they don't tell you when you talk to that listing agent, just ask them, what's good for them. If the house is empty, I'm guessing they're probably going to say, "Oh, quicker the better. This house is empty. It's costing them money." Okay. All right. Danger, danger. All right. Waiving inspections. Boy, oh boy, we see this all the time. Pretty self-explanatory. Waiving a home inspection, definitely can make your offer more attractive. But there are significant risks associated with it. Can't say it enough. Okay. We have seen, I mean, there was 2 or 3 years that I saw 10 times more waiving inspections than I did in my entire real estate career. I mean, it was just, that was just the fad. I never recommend that. And I don't even recommend it so much that if a buyer wants to go against my wishes, and we'll talk a little bit more about it, I have them sign a form that tells them how important it is. And I educated them about it, but they're not listening to what I'm saying. When we have things inspected, they're going to be looking at everything: structural issues, plumbing and electrical, HVAC. We kind of all understand that. Now, one thing is, you can still have a house inspected, but you can just say, "We're getting it done for informational purposes only." Now, the caveat to that is your buyer still has an opportunity to back out. Okay. They can have the inspection for the peace of mind, like it says on the slide here. Peace of mind, number 2. Okay. But they don't have to ask for the repairs. Okay. Now, what happens if they get, and I use this example a lot, but what happens if they got it inspected and they found out that there's dead bodies in the basement or something crazy like that? If they say, "Hey, we're going to forfeit our right of inspection," you literally just bought the Jeffrey Dahmer house. Okay. Congratulations. Right? Because you forfeited that and you can't back out of it. If you have that option of, of the inspection, technically you can cancel for anything that you see on that inspection that you just don't like or you didn't see. That's the unfortunate thing. We always hold our breaths on those inspections because, a buyer can back out for whatever reason. Okay. So again, guys, we have people live watching. If you have any questions, As I go through this, put it in the chat comment section. I'll be happy to answer them as we go through because we are live. So if you have a client, guys, that just doesn't want to pay $400 or $500 for an inspection, okay, it's going to happen. All right. I firmly believe I'm not steering my clients to not get a home inspection to win a house. I might tell them, well, like let's do a good once over. And if you want to buy the house as is, because sometimes sellers say, hey, we're not fixing anything, it's as is. That's fine. As is does not mean we can't get it inspected. That just means what you see is what you get. You're not asking for repairs. At least they can have the peace of mind to knowing what they're walking into when they get the keys. Okay, now it's going to be hard to see this on the screen, but all of our agents at Ashmont Realty, we have this, but there's something called a hold harmless agreement upon inspection waiver. If you have a client that does not want to spend $500 to get an inspection done, even though you're saying, hey, you really should do it, it's a good idea, have them fill this out. Okay. What this does, it just like it says, it's holding you harmless. Okay. It's holding you harmless. And it just talks about that, that this property, we strongly recommend, that's the verbiage. Our brokerage, Ashmont Realty, strongly recommends that you have this place thoroughly inspected, properly inspected. And you're not doing it. You're kind of waiving your right, the buyer's right to do it. And, they're going to sign it. And I can tell you, in our business, anyone can sue you for anything. Okay, that's what's scary about it. And you got to defend yourself. But if you have those buyers sign that, it's kind of, there's no legal leg that they're going to have to stand on. And again, I'm not an attorney. I'm a real estate broker. But, I can tell you it's going to be really hard for them to squeeze any money out of you when you have proof that you even went to the point where you had them sign a waiver to say you really need to get one and you're going against what I'm telling you. Okay. Really important, guys. Again, if someone says the house is as is, it does not mean that you can't get inspections. If you want to buy a house, buyer, this goes to buyers out there and buyer agents. If you're looking at a house and the seller's like, no, we want an offer that does not have anyone do an inspection, then there's something going on. Huge red flag. Huge red flag. Right? It's like going on a date and say, hey, let's get married tomorrow, but you can't do any Facebook stalking or run my criminal record. Let's just get married tomorrow. It's the same thing, right? You should know something's not right. And guess what? There's always other houses. Just keep moving on. Say, this is not a right deal. I know it's easier to have deals with no inspections, but you're getting yourself set up. And it's not going to go well. I have many, many stories of buyers that don't do a thorough inspection. They buy a house, or they do an inspection, they buy a house, then they have buyer regret. There's some things wrong with the house, and then like the whole thing goes to heck in a handbasket, and it doesn't make the whole situation like enjoyable. Buying a home should be really, really enjoyable. All right. Again, if you have any questions, put it in the comments. I'll answer them live. But again, have them fill out that waiver. Very, very, very important. That'll protect you if they come back on you. Because if they make bad decisions buying something, they're probably going to make bad decisions after they buy something. They'll suck you right into it. All right, let's keep moving along. We're halfway through. Escalation clause. This is one that we see a lot. Escalation clauses. I always joke with sellers on escalation clauses. We'll define it here. We'll give you a good example here shortly. Is, well, if they were going to pay you for that in the first place, why didn't they just do that? Why didn't they just give it to you on the initial offer? Now, an escalation clause is very, I don't want to say popular. We saw it more a few years ago. Not so much. Seems like these clauses are fads. I don't know. But an escalation clause. Just like that little picture, an escalator going up and there's money. That's exactly what's happening here. Okay, so you have an initial offer, and I'm going to show you an example here shortly, here on the next slide. But you have an offer, and what happens is if someone beats your offer, okay, your offer automatically goes higher up to a certain ceiling. Okay. So in theory, you can't be beat out up to a certain point. Think of it like you're automatically bidding on eBay and someone bids a higher offer than you, then you have it set up where it automatically bids higher than the last automatically. Now, I want to make this real clear, guys. And a lot of buyers, agents, like they'll get mad when I say this. Just because they put an escalation clause in their contract, sellers don't have to entertain it. I've had a lot of situations in my real estate careers that sellers are like, I don't even understand this. Like if they wanted to pay 400 for it in the first place, then they should have just offered 400. Like it's like they're playing games with this. It's kind of confusing a little bit. And they just think like, well, that's not fair. Someone outbid them. They shouldn't automatically outbid them. So rule of thumb is, guys, and I know some people don't like to hear this, is just because you get an offer has an escalation clause. If the seller says, I don't like it, I don't want to deal with these people, I don't care what they give me, you don't have to automatically win the bid. They can just say, we're not entertaining this offer anymore. Thank you for presenting it. Because remember, we have to present the offer in a timely manner. So I've had situations like that, because it gets a little confusing. So with that being said, let me show you, here's a good example of an escalation clause. So someone writes an offer. So the initial offer is $400,000. It has an escalation amount of $5,000. And there is a cap of $415,000. So, which means that offer cannot be more than $415,000. So, regardless of what the other people offers they're putting in, it can't exceed 415. So, there's always going to be a ceiling, right? Someone can't bid them up forever. Okay. Now, and it goes up in increments of $5,000. Okay. So, if you put in an offer, let's kind of put everything back in frame because this can be a little confusing. So if you put an offer in for $400,000, guys, and someone turns around and puts an offer in for $402,000, that $400,000 offer that you put in automatically goes to $405,000. You beat out the other offer. And you can go back and forth. So the second offer could, turn around and outbid you if they allow it. And you can go all the way up until once you hit the $415,000 ceiling that the buyer allows. And if someone offers $415,001, then you're going to lose out. So that's a really good clause you can use. If, you just really want a house and you're just worried that you're going to get outbid, the key is you got to have a ceiling, and, that could be whatever the buyer's willing to go up to. That ceiling, remember, they got to have the money. So if you're going over list price, you got to make sure that the buyer has the cash in their checking account to make up the difference, because they could get bid up. They could get bid up all the way, and then now they're kind of stuck. So that's a little trickier. It's called an escalation clause. You can use it. I'm going to show you. There is a form that I'm going to show you here. There we go. Here it is. It's going to be hard to see if you're on your cell phone, but even on my big monitor in front of me. But it's called an escalation addendum. For all Ashmont Realty agents, it's in your loop forms. But this is something that if you're in a multiple offer situation, and you put an offer in, but you're like, I really think we might get beat, guys. What we can do is we can put an escalation clause in this offer, which means if anyone beats us, we can automatically, in theory, keep going up until the ceiling. I just want to make sure you're clear, guys. Just because you write a contract that says it doesn't mean the seller has to entertain it. I think if you're going to do an escalation clause, I think you want to get with the seller's agent and let them know what you're doing. Because again, you have rapport at this time, and let them know, because I am telling you guys, there's a lot of agents that don't know what this even means. The fact you're here on tonight on a Thursday night at almost 8 o'clock at night means that you're not going to be one of those agents. But there's a lot of agents that don't do that don't take the time to learn some of this stuff. So you want to make sure your listing agent understands what you're doing, how that works. So they're not going to their seller saying, there's this clause in here. I'm not an attorney. I don't understand it. And if they don't understand it, the sellers aren't going to understand it. And guess what? You could have had a winning offer, but since they don't understand how it works, they're not going to sign it and execute it. Okay. And if they don't sign and execute it, you don't have a deal in Ohio anyhow, right? In most states. So I hope that helps. And again, it's called an escalation clause. There's the form. You can attach that as an addendum in your contract. So we're moving right along, guys. And again, if you have any questions, put it in the comments. I'll ask them. I'll answer them live. Okie doke. Let's move on. All right, appraisal gap. Oh boy. Now this one we see all the time. We see this today. Up the good old appraisal gap. Well, just like the picture on the slide, it's a house, money, and oh boy, there's a difference. I can tell you that there was a time, even before COVID, when things started picking up, people were listing homes maybe more than what they were worth. People were getting a little bit more aggressive on homes, what they were worth. So what they were doing was listing houses higher than what they'd probably appraise for. Okay. AKA greedy. Sellers were getting greedy. And what happens was buyers were like, the buyer's agents, we look at the comps and be like, everything in this community sells for $100,000 and they're asking 115. I don't know if this is going to even appraise. Even if you have a buyer that's able and willing to buy a house, $100,000 house for $115,000, if you have a bank involved, they're not going to be willing and able to do that deal. Why would a bank give $115,000 to a buyer to buy a house that's worth $100,000? They don't. That's the problem. So what happens is the $115,000 contract that the seller was, they were counting their money and profits. But then when the appraiser came back and said, this is only worth $100,000, what are you guys doing? What are you smoking, right? What's going on here? This doesn't make sense. The bank will say, we'll do the deal, but the deal is $100,000, not $115,000. You're crazy. Guys, all of you are crazy. So what happens is in the contract, you can cancel the contract. Both parties can kind of walk away from it. But really what happens is the buyer goes, all right, I just bought $100,000. I bought this. I thought I had to pay $115,000 for the house. Now I got it for $100,000. Okay, that's what usually happens. But listing agents and some attorney in some far, far away land got creative, and they came up with the appraisal gap. The appraisal gap, in layman's terms, and I'll give you a definition here in a second, but basically is that $115,000 house that you just put the offer in and, we agreed to it. If it doesn't appraise for $115,000, You, buyer, are going to guarantee something, a difference between what it appraises for and what we want, or the AKA gap. Here's a definition. So the appraisal gap is the difference between the home's appraised value, $100,000 in this example, and the agreed upon purchase price, which was $115,000. So for example, if you agree to buy a house for $350,000, but the appraisal comes in at $330,000, the appraisal gap is 20 grand. Okay, so that's 350 minus 330. That's $20,000. Now, in the contract, you can say my buyer will cover the difference, which means they got to write a check for $20,000. Okay, that's crazy. Okay, now most of the time in those appraisal gap in the language, and I'm going to show you the language here in a second, guys, so hang tight, is they'll put a cap on it. They'll say, listen, we can't give you 20,000, but how about we guarantee a $10,000 gap. So let's take a look at it. This is the language. This is from the Columbus Bar Association. Okay, you want to take a picture of it in your cell phone. It's in all the boards, forms, but this is what it says. This is the clause, just basically saying, hey, that the buyer will cover any such appraisal gap for what it sells for to what it appraised for, up to a maximum amount of blank. Okay, it can be anything, but just remember, guys, and take a picture of this, but it is in all the forms with all the boards here in Ohio. But this is a home run for the seller, because again, they are guaranteeing to sell that house for whatever you put in that blank for more than the house is worth. So that's a grand slam for a seller. They're selling it above appraisal value, and that is a grand slam. So just remember, if you want to get your buyer into that kind of a situation, whatever you put in that spot, that blank spot here, that little blank spot next to that dollar sign, guys, that is how much on top of a down payment, closing costs, and whatever your buyer has to bring to closing, they have to pay cash for that. Okay. So just warn buyers that, there's a strong chance that this could happen. Because remember, guys, you're looking at comps. That house is worth $100,000. They're wanting $115,000 for it. Maybe there's going to be a difference. There's going to be some difference, a gap between what they're wanting for it, what it's going to be worth. And, we're probably going to have to cover the difference. So, whatever we write in that gap, in that piece of paper there, we're stuck for the bill. So make sure that they have that kind of money into that account. I've had conversations with buyer agents that will say, well, because I'll ask them, do they have the funds to make up that appraisal gap? And they'll say, well, I'm not sure, but come on, it'll probably appraise. It'll probably appraise. It should. And it's like, I don't think so. I don't think so. There's nothing statistics showing it will, and we're not going to get into a contract with a buyer that doesn't even have the funds to make up that appraisal gap. Okay, so you want to make sure that if you talk to your client about appraisal gaps to win deals, that they have the money in their account to cover whatever they're promising. Okay. That one we see a lot. That is a win-win grand slam for the seller when you see those appraisal gaps. All right. Well, guys, that's it. That is the most frequently asked questions and things that we cover on contracts that we've been seeing in 2024. If you guys have any questions, we're going to wind down. It's been almost an hour. But, if you guys have any further questions, reach out to me. And also too, for everyone that's not with Ashmont Realty and maybe you're watching from home on pre-recorded, if you think you want to get into real estate, guys, now's a great time to do it. All Ashmont Realty agents get that back then, but check it out. Thank you guys for coming on tonight about how to write killer contracts in 2024 and beyond. This is Adam Ashba, broker of Ashmont Realty. Thank you guys. Have a great night, and we'll see you all very, very soon.